Welcome to another riveting draw with me. Today we're drawing a clown, and we're just starting off with a time lapse directly in my program because I didn't record the sketch, because sketching is not my strong suit, and I find that not recording helps take the pressure off and lets me explore more ideas and stay loose. And this time I actually did what everyone tells me to do to get better quicker, but I rarely actually do. Well, okay, I did this one a little differently because I had already drawn 2 sketches before this and I was running out of patience. But basically, I would find my reference and have it up on my second monitor and then try to draw what I was seeing. Then I would pull the reference into Clip Studio Paint and trace over the reference, making guidelines for myself that are kind of easier to follow. Then make a separate drawing of the pose and using the guidelines that I just made to help with like the angles and stuff and kind of exaggerate and stylize the pose. Hopefully some of that made sense. But this process is quite different from what I usually do, where I just trace straight over the reference, or I freehand it and then pull the reference over it and change the parts that are wrong. Because the thought of having to draw the same thing 3 or 4 times, or however many it takes to get it right, makes me want to die. So while I know what the professionals tells me to do is best and will help me improve faster, most days I just can't be bothered. But today was different for some reason, and it was really quite enjoyable actually. It was super fascinating seeing the difference between the first and the third drawing, and when I was done with it I actually felt proud of myself and like I had actually learned something and had improved, instead of just feeling like a lying fraud that should just crumble up and die like I usually do. Does that mean I will never trace over my references ever again? No. Sometimes I want to get something down quickly or my skills are failing me that day, and that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. It all comes down to why I'm drawing and how I'm feeling. For example, the reason I did it this way today was because I was just kind of looking for something to make into a video. I was just kind of looking for ideas, and originally I actually wanted to make an OC I could draw whenever I didn't know what to draw. And then something happened along the way and now it's just a pretty clown. I might draw this specific clown again, who knows? If I've learned anything from this drawing, is that you might have a plan, but you never know how you, 5 seconds from now, will screw everything over. Now, I want to give credit where credit is due to Mac McCurley, who is behind the reference picture. They have a whole line of the most gorgeous clowns, and I've actually stumbled upon their work many times before without realizing it was from the same person. So thank you specifically to Bebeto the Pranking Potential Clown for inspiring this specific piece. And now I start on the colors. I struggled so much with the colors of this. It's kind of painful to look at. I really wanted a lot of orange in there because I love orange, but I hate drawing with orange because it's either very intense or it just becomes every other color. If you shift it away from the far right corner, it's either brown or peach or just straight up yellow. It really sucks to love orange so much because no one likes it. So it's a pain to buy anything in orange, and coloring anything orange is so intense, and I'm really not good at working with intense colors. I would love to be, but I'm not. For some reason, when there are more than 2 different vibrant colors on a drawing, I become completely colorblind. Like, I have no idea whether the drawing is colorful or just straight up painful to look at. And in the end, I do still end up going with a sort of cowardice colors compared to the first many tries. I went back and forth a lot, contemplating whether I should keep the lighting or focus on the clown itself. It's one of those instances where even in the end, I actually like this sketch more. But because I kept going back and forth from hating it to loving it to hating it, I decided to just shut down for the day and continue drawing the next day. And when I woke up, I immediately decided to scrap everything and go back to what I know works. Monochromatic. I literally just googled warm color palette, grabbed the first one I liked, and everything went smoothly from there. So, what we learn. I think, well, it's not my first digital drawing on this channel, but it is the first drawing on my computer tablet. The other digital drawing was on my iPad in Procreate, and for me, I kind of use Procreate for more casual, simple drawings. My digital art career started because I got the entire Adobe pack in conjunction with my art school. And around that same time, I got a drawing tablet. I started on Photoshop because it was what I had at the time, and then I switched to Clip Studio. And then around 2 years ago, my family got together and gifted me an iPad and Procreate, and I kind of ended up abandoning drawing on my computer in favor of my iPad. Procreate is just way more intuitive, and I'm able to draw on my iPad anywhere, anytime. And then during the summer, I started feeling kind of stuck. I was making a surprising amount of finished work that just sort of felt lifeless and repetitive. Then back in June, I drew a sunburnt Ghetto girl, and I loved the concept. And honestly, the drawing itself looks fine. It was just so damn boring. Like, I felt absolutely nothing when I looked at it, not even hatred. And then I started looking back at my old art, both the stuff on my iPad and my computer, and I looked at art from 2 years ago though. While it was technically speaking worse, it was just full of life and like inspiring to look at. And while I was scrolling through the drawings that I had made on my computer, I realized I used to push myself a lot further, and I used to try so many more new things. And I honestly can't remember what made me connect the dots, but I ended up switching back to Clip Studio Paint. And maybe it sounds like BS to you, but everything I had struggled with for months was gone. I was full of ideas and inspiration. I've been challenging myself more, both in my digital and my traditional drawings. And I know from Divya Soup on TikTok that people really don't like it when you say the Procreate isn't a professional app, but Divya Soup is right, and I'm tired of pretending they're not. Procreate was really good for me where I was 2 years ago. It allowed me to draw more often, and more is always better when it comes to drawing. And what I needed at the time was just practice, which is what Procreate gave me the opportunity to do. But Procreate is visibly designed for beginner and intermediate artists, and I had simply reached a point where I needed a more advanced program. When I first got Clip Studio, I was at a point where Procreate would have been more than enough, but if I didn't have my Photoshop and Clip Studio drawings to look back on, I would have continued to think the problem was me, and might even have continued to grind away in a program that was too small for me. I might even have eventually quit drawing altogether, all because I had outgrown the program I was using. And that is why I think it's so important to not pretend like Procreate is a professional program aimed at professional and advanced artists. Now, as Divya has restated so many times I've lost count, that doesn't mean the Procreate can't be used by professional artists. It just means the Procreate isn't made with professionals in mind. And honestly, I can't be bothered to go into all the nuances and what ifs and buts, because I feel like the people who get it, and the people who don't want to hear it. But if you want to hear more of this argument and get mad at people for being purposefully obtuse, I'm pretty sure you can just search Divya Soup Procreate on TikTok and fall into the same rabbit hole I stumbled across a couple months ago. So yeah, that's basically how Clip Studio Paint saved my art. Yippee, let's move on. But let me walk you through rendering the face. So for the blushing, I just take the base color and make it slightly more saturated, and airbrush that color on the cheeks and nose, also on the hands and knees, but that's not important right now. And then I take the base color and make it lighter, which is kind of hard to see because the base is already so light, but regardless. This is something I've never done before, and I'm not sure if I like it. I'll have to try it on some of my future drawings to see if it's something I want to implement into my process. And then with the same almost white, I brightened the inner corner of the eyes, and I also tried defining the nose with it, but I didn't like how it looked, so instead I lassoed the shape of the nose and airbrushed more blush on it, which gives this kind of hard edge but still keeps that airbrushed look, and it's a technique I use throughout the whole drawing. I haven't really found my rendering style quite yet, so I was honestly quite nervous going into it, and I kind of pushed it off, but Valerie's video on tips for rendering was so incredibly helpful in deciding where to start and everything. To create dimension, I went in with the lasso tool and the soft brush. I wouldn't say I went overboard exactly, but I definitely used it more than I expected it to. This drawing is the first human drawn on this channel, and drawing humans is something I really struggle with, and sometimes I kind of feel like the reverse of the typical artist struggles. I love drawing buildings and landscapes. I don't really mind hands. Of course they can get tricky depending on the pose, but I don't mind them. And I much prefer line art over sketching, which is something I see artists complain about all the time. Like, you don't have to do it if you hate it that much. I kind of have to sketch because I just really hate having to use my brain and actually think of an idea. And when I do draw humans, I prefer drawing the full body in extreme poses. I suck so much in making figures stand normally and not look like an NPC. It always looks weird and non-human compared to the extreme poses. Oh, don't even get me started on faces. I hate them so much. I do feel like I'm getting better slowly, organically over time. Like, I avoid drawing faces, which is stupid because if I just practice them, I would get a lot better, a lot quicker, but I also don't really feel the need to practice them because I rarely draw faces because I'm bad at them, so I avoid them. Do you see my problem? But sometimes I will come back and draw faces for the first time in like months and still somehow have improved. I laid this face down so easily. Like, yeah, I changed the expression a couple times, but each time it came naturally and I didn't have to like redraw it a bunch of times and go back in and tweak it like a million times like I usually have to do. I don't know why this happens, but I'm glad that it does because that means I can put off practicing and studying even longer. And when I finally felt like I couldn't achieve more dimension in life with just the airbrush, I made a layer on top of all the bajillion layers I used to airbrush and set that to multiply at 50% opacity because that's just the opacity I like to work in. I selected the entire shape again and just color picked the base, adjusting the colors when it was too strong or too light, and I went in and I shaded some parts. I do feel like I went pretty light on it, but we live and we learn. So I've never really been much of a rendering guy. I mean, the amount of drawings I've abandoned the second I had to start applying shadows kind of speaks for themselves. I really hate it. I'm really not sure why. Maybe it's because I have a limited amount of time to work on a drawing, and by the time I've applied the flat colors, I'm fed up with looking at it. But
that's just a theory.
Sorry, I don't know what happened there. But that's just a theory. Regardless of why, I can tell I'm very much on the brink of a big breakthrough in finding my rendering style. Like, I'm so close to understanding how much is too much and how much is not enough. Like, I definitely feel like I didn't do enough with this piece, but the drawing I made afterwards, I feel like I went totally overboard on the rendering. So per my calculations, the next drawing I make will be perfectly cooked. But let's see, you never know. But I'm just trying to get this video out before I get smarter and look at this drawing with disgust, because now I realize what I should have done and now I hate it. No, that's never happened before. Why would you even ask that? But that's all I really wanted to talk about for today. I don't think this is my best work, but hey, it's a drawing and that's what you're here for, isn't it? Bye.